Welcome back, YouTube. Welcome to another species shout out. That's right, we're just going to go with that because that's how my brain works, I'm afraid. There might be a bit of background noise other than the birds today because there is a road there. So we're going to talk about a fish that, it's not that I can't pronounce properly, it's that I don't say it the same as other people consciously. Some people call them the blue-eyed fork-tail rainbow. Sometimes they call them the Pseudomugil Furcata, but I call it the Pseudomugil Furcata. And I know you're probably thinking that sounds the same, but in this brain, Pseudomugil just kind of sounds like, well, the title for a camp off-brand cabaret by a company that couldn't afford the rights to Cruella de Vil. No? Pseudomugil. So the Furcata is a mid to top water dweller, which is great because we quite often struggle for fish to fill that top third of our aquarium. They are omnivorous, so they accept pretty much any man-made food, but they do relish the live food. If you're going to feed them brine shrimp or artemia, go for the larger ones, the tipitana. It's just more of a meatier mouthful for them. They cope with that absolutely fine. I find sometimes with the Franciscana, they sort of, not that they lack enthusiasm, it's just feeding takes a lot longer. So whilst the rest of that audio disappeared off into the ether, let's continue talking about Furcatas. Maximum size for these guys around about 5 centimeters, the 2-inch mark, and they're really hardy little things. The water parameters anywhere up to 15 degrees hardness, a pH from 6.5 up to 8. I personally have never kept them at 8, and I probably wouldn't. Maximum I go is 7.5. What we have found at 7.5 is the number of eggs produced is greater. However, the hatch rate is far smaller. So what we're doing is we're keeping them around 7.2, and then we remove the eggs, and for hatching they're kept at 6.5. Temperature, again a wide band, 23 all the way up to 28. They don't require high flow. In fact, we've had them in some high flow situations and they haven't really got on very well. Low to moderate flow is probably considered best, but high oxygen. You can see from the footage that these guys are very active fish, and especially when it comes to feeding time, they are ferocious feeders. So that leads us on to tank design. Now, a planted tank, if you're keeping these without the intention of breeding, is great. Even if you have got the intention of breeding, to be fair, planted tank is a good option, but your time and effort in having to find the eggs, if you're trying to hatch them artificially for maximum production, it's going to be wasted in a planted tank. Hence why this breeding group have nothing but a spawning mop and the roots of one of the marbled pothos, which are all over that room, to be honest. Densely planted areas with open swim space is ideal. Now you can include some line of sight blockers with wood or rock if the numbers are low, because that gives the males a chance to concentrate their attention on each other. And although they do sort of fight, I've never seen an injury from it. It's mostly just flaring up and showing off. However, line of sight blockers give a male a chance to just get away from another one. My opinion on that, I would probably go for wood rather than rocks, unless you have some big boulders, because these guys sort of accommodate the top third of the aquarium. The last thing you want is to be placing boulders precariously near the top area of the tank. It's just asking for disaster. So I guess that brings us on to breeding. Floating plants or dense roots in natural settings, if you're going for a planted tank, or spawning mops like you can see in our footage. Floating plants, Salvinia, also a really good one if you're trying to just sort of colony breed. Riccia fluitans, get a thick 2-inch carpet mat of that growing at the top in an area. That will mean that the fry have somewhere to live near the surface. They have access to oxygen, but also complete shelter. That grows almost like 15 ppi sponge. It's almost impenetrable. Duckweed, that's not going to cut it. It's not. Red root floaters, again, that's not going to aid your fry survival. I know a lot of people will say it does, but for these, it doesn't. As far as mops are concerned, you would think that because they spend their time in the top third of the aquarium, that a floating mop would be best. Well, these guys, they seem to chop and change. We have both in there just because of this reason. Some days you'll find 40, 50 eggs purely on the floating mop or entirely on the sunken mop. Sometimes it would be a mix of both. Sometimes it'd be completely even split. So if it is a mop system you're going for, definitely put both in. When it comes to the eggs, egg predation, it's not something I've ever witnessed. I've seen a lot of people say that, you know, they will eat their own eggs. I've never seen it. They're not stupid. They don't lay their eggs on the outside of the mop at all. It's always deep within. The fry, however, 100%, unless you have provided cover, you won't see any babies. So once you've got eggs, hatching takes place in around 10 to 12 days, temperature dependent. So the warmer it is, the earlier they will hatch. The fry are tiny, not necessarily as small as some of the small tetras, but yeah, about the size of an eyelash. If you have a good hatch, it can look like, you know, your partner's put a Russian lashes all over the top of your aquarium, which the first time that happens is a bit of a shock. So despite their tiny size, just like the adults, these guys are really, really hardy. Although I've used paramecium in the past as a first food for the first week, the fine powder is absolutely fine. Hikari first bites, Dr. Basileir baby, or even just straight Rapashi powder. All these have been used here, as well as just the old traditional boil the chicken egg, get a tiny piece of the yolk and mix that into some of the tank water, which just makes cloudy water. Feed that. Absolutely brilliant source of food. These fry are so hardy that they'll survive on just one feeding a day. How do I know that? Well, you could call it neglect. I call it a very busy, hard-working, 12-hour-a-day dad with a very attention-hungry 4-year-old and 11-year-old. And Mrs. Shrimp likes a bit of attention too. So sometimes, yes, just once a day is all they've got, and they do absolutely fine on it, I promise you. Twice a day is really good. Optimal seems to be 3 to 4 times, as with most other fry. The fry are glacial. Absolutely phenomenally slow at growing. You're not looking at getting colour for around about 3-ish months and a sale size around the 4-month mark. But this fish is a beautiful, active, intense feeder for the top third of your aquarium. It's definitely worth a look. So yeah, that's what I've got. Pseudomugil Furcatas. A fantastic, energetic top dweller that's really fun to try and breed. Good luck with them.